On Labour Lens this week, we will be discussing the world of work in Nigeria and in Africa, especially challenges facing workers, employers of labor, and government. Also on the show this week, we will examine the issue of unemployment and the need for social security for citizens. Hello and welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Let's take a moment.
The federal government has commended the initiative between the Industrial Training Fund (ITF) and the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) aimed at improving skills development in the economy. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo gave the commendation at a virtual meeting with partners on skills development. A statement from NECA indicates that the aim of the meeting was to give a report on the progress of the ITF-NECA Technical Skills Development Project so far. Professor Osinbajo also directed the ITF to harmonize all operations related to skills development by ministries, departments, agencies across the country as enshrined in the ITF Act. This, he said, will help in achieving greater success in technical and vocational education in the country. The meeting was attended by the Ministers of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, Youth and Sports, Sunday Dari, and representatives of the Minister of Education. The ministers also addressed the report of the project and the concept notes, benchmarking it with those of other climes. The national president of the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has congratulated Festus Osifo on his emergence as president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSN. Osifo's victory was announced on Friday at the 6th Triennial National Delegates Conference in Abuja, which was attended by 384 delegates drawn from the association's branches nationwide. Other elected officers include Duru Matthew as Deputy President and Victor Ononobono as National Treasurer.
Enough is enough. Say no to rape.
There were no fewer than 717 rape cases recorded in Nigeria between January and May this year alone. Cases of rape and gender-based violence confront women daily, some of which end in the death of the victims. News outlets have practically been replete in the past months with extremely horrifying cases of gender-based crimes. At this conference organized by the Women Commission of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, a clear call to action is being made.
Immediately a sexual assault incident happens, the first thing is to go to the medical facility to receive medical attention. In Lagos State, we have the DNA forensic lab, and so if you go to any of the comprehensive primary healthcare centers or the sexual assault referral centers, you will be able to receive medical attention. Head-to-toe forensic medical examination will be done. We can collect samples that we can test for DNA, and same can be transmitted to the DNA lab so that we can start to solve cases using science, using forensics.
According to findings, rape perpetrators are often known to the victims, and its effects are not limited to unwanted pregnancy, mental illness, low self-esteem, amongst others.
We are also working with Ministry of Labour. We work with National Assembly concerning Convention 190 from the United Nations ILO to see how it can be passed and ratified in Nigeria and passed into law.
For us as fathers and mothers right now, who amongst us will allow his son or her son marry a rape victim? The hall was a bit quiet. A few hands were up, and that's to tell us the kind of stigma we carry in our hearts, because we've attached so much importance to mundane things of life.
From the conference hall, the workers held a peaceful walk to the Lagos State House of Assembly to submit their position.
Some people do it in Lagos, they will go to another state and still go and commit the same offense. So we are telling our government, if there's a way they can handshake it, so that if you do it in any 36 states in the country, you can't be anywhere. Yes.
As students continue to learn virtually, parents were urged to pay attention to their words, listen and use reassuring words such as "I believe you," "You are not to blame," "I trust you," to get helpful information, especially when tracing a sexual offender.
Susana Puerto Gonzalez, Research and Youth Employment Specialist of the International Labour Organization, spoke about the impact of coronavirus on youths at a webinar meeting. It was gathered that the disproportionate effect of the pandemic on young people has exacerbated inequalities and risk reducing the productive potential of the entire generation.
The report shows that 1 in 6 young people have stopped working since the onset of the virus. This job loss particularly affects younger youth and those working in clerical support, services, sales and crafts. The report also shows the impacts of the pandemic on the mental well-being of young people. 70% of young people are probably affected by anxiety and depression. The ILO therefore calls for urgent, immediate and large-scale action and investments on youth employment so that we can support a safer transition for young people into productive employment and decent work.
The coronavirus crisis is having a devastating effect on the education and training of young people.
The best efforts from schools and training institutions in securing continuity in education through online learning, 1 in 8 young students didn't have access to courses. This is particularly the case for young people in lower income countries and also emphasizes large digital divides across regions.
Since the outset of the pandemic, over 70% of youths who study or combine study with work have been adversely affected by the closing of schools, universities, and training centers.
Federal government has been truthful in prompt payment of our pension, monthly pension, every month. The money that we are contesting for is the accrued arrears that have not been paid for the year 2000. Rumor had it that this money has been paid to the cover of NEMCO, and we have been told that it wasn't our money. That is not true, and that is why we are coming to the press and we are talking to the president that they should bear us out and see to our plight. Since 2017, 2018, now we are in 2020. We have nothing to show for it. We want our money before our death. We don't want to earn our money in the grave.
Concerned pensioners of the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN, formerly known as National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, are calling on the federal government to pay them the 33% increase in pension approved by former President Goodluck Jonathan. According to these pensioners who retired between 2000 and 2003, they are yet to receive the balance payment of the gratuity and pension since 2010.
Those people who they got their money paid before they left, and they get higher pensions paid now. But for those who retired between 2003 and 2009, they were no longer in service when it was approved. Their benefits had been computed, and paid to them. Now, the arrears is what we're talking about now, and that's about 7 billion naira. Now, that has brought a discrepancy between even those who were senior, well in service, and those who were their junior. Those who were their junior, to some extent, and more than their seniors when they were in service.
And if after all the years one had spent, like I spent almost 15 years, and I'm now unable to draw the pension I have contributed into, it doesn't speak well. Several visits to NEMCO's office and eventually Petard.
There have been several complaints over irregularities in the payment of pensions. Many of them have restated the need for pensions to be reviewed just like minimum wage.
The way forward, like I said, is for the government to take up this challenge and ensure that all those who have taken money that, illegally, illicit funding should be addressed.
For the concerned PHCN pensioners, they want their short-paid gratuity and pensions to be remitted regularly. Susanna Gonzalez, Research and Youth Employment Specialist at the International Labour Organization ILO, recently spoke about the impact of COVID-19 on productivity and education of youths at a webinar meeting. The interaction is to ensure that the international body continues to advance social justice and promote decent work. But how are these being advanced in Nigeria? My guest this week is the Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Amaechi Asugwuni. It's good to have you on the program.
You're welcome, Mrs. Sharon.
A lot has been happening in the world of work, especially as regards loss of jobs. For Nigeria and in Africa, youth unemployment is on the rise. As the Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, can you share what your experience has been?
Honestly, unemployment is a very strong indicator in every economy. As a matter of fact, all over the world, there seems to be a slight downfall on the employment curve. And that is to say there is a rise in unemployment. That is a great suggestion of economic crisis. So back to Nigeria and Africa, you agree with me that a country that is already suffering from unemployment with this clear evidence that has resulted to workers sitting back home and a lot of companies closing up while the employment keep widening. The unemployment is widening, and my experience and our experience from the labor point is if we don't do anything fast now, it's going to eat to the bone, and that will be more dangerous. In every economy, the target is to see how we sustain employment. It is the employment that you use to identify the efficiency of an economy. And where this is lacking, like the case we have in Nigeria, unemployment is a very disastrous factor. In the recent, it's supposed to be contributing to the economic growth and development. And where you don't have it, don't forget, until people understand that employment generation is not doing favor to individuals, but to the economy, to the government, and to the country itself. When people believe that granting employment is the discretion of goodwill, that is not true. It's a duty to actually sustain and survive the economy. The workers you are talking about are the workers that will produce that which we need. The valuable goods and services are produced by these workers. When they earn their salary for doing so, they still return back with this money to purchase those goods, paying tax, returning that government money back to government to actually enhance development. So when you don't take advantage of the secular advantage of employment, you pay less attention to it, and will continue to suffer downward unemployment. Because today, rather than talking about economic growth, we're talking about jobless growth, and that is something worrisome.
So can you tell us more? Can you tell us more with your experience? I know that there are some offices you occupy in terms of contributing towards looking at what the GDP is and what the unemployment rate is, and also maybe hiring and firing in the sector. But can you share with us what your experience is? Would you say that the government is doing enough vis-a-vis response from the private sector towards government's non-contribution towards ensuring that the effect of the COVID-19 is not being felt too much in the sector?
My findings has proven that the connection between government and the private sector is poorly managed. As a matter of fact, there is no respect nor regard to the directive of government with regards to halting loss of job or redundancy action as a result of COVID, believing that there will be stimulus plan from government to actually pushing the effect. Employers at the private sector has proceeded long ago in firing workers, because these people believe that the law that guarantees removal of workers when they are not needed has not been amended. So simple directive from government is not enough to halt the existence of law. And I will tell you, when people negate instructions and directive of federal government Actually, these directives were given to save jobs in order not to unnecessarily, deliberately increase crime in the country. So when we look at what is happening in Nigeria, there is a clear, huge gap between the federal government and the private sector. They are not taking, nobody is thinking like government is thinking. As far as I'm concerned, they are business people who want to make profit. Government on its own is actually aimed at generating employment. But in this case, I can't see how they will do better than they are doing, because before now, there was no foundation to generate job. So when COVID has come to erode the little we have, it becomes more disastrous, because you can see actions speak louder than voice. In economics, you don't say it, you practicalize it. So what we are having now, that we don't have the indices that will guarantee employment, not to talk of sustaining the one we have. They are not sustaining jobs. So anybody telling you of job creation now is a deceit, and that I will not buy to it. Federal government should actually design a policy that will eventually sustain the employment we have already. The job creation is a different ballgame. The people are losing their job now. It's a big threat to the economy, because when you have people who are demanding, they want to eat food, but there's no money in their hand to do so. As a matter of fact, indicators that measures the ability of an economy to generate sufficient employment opportunity include checking the unemployment rate, looking at the workforce participation.
So would you say that the campaign to ensure that that the government creates an unemployment department is necessary at this point in time? We've had a lot of people say in developed countries, we've had people go to the unemployment department to submit letters that they are unemployed, and the government of course takes care of them. In this case in Nigeria, even though we don't have social security, is there any possibility that the government creates an unemployment department so we can have a record of those that are out of job, and probably the government can either provide jobs or ensure that there are palliatives given to these people?
Yeah, I think they can do so. You know, Nigeria, we are used to creating more bodies to governance than utilizing the ones we have. Efficiency of labor demands that you can still use the few workers you have to generate more productivity. So the instrument we have in Nigerian government sufficiently should have given us what we are asking for. But if creating alternative department to actually investigate and dig out this hidden unemployment, if they are not seeing them, because unemployment is clear. For you to actually know the rate of your unemployment, you to ask yourself how many are employed in the circle of 300 million people in Nigeria. How many do we have working? And you find out that you have less than 50 million Nigerians working. So how do you quantify a developing country with this massive unemployment rate faced with insecurity? Where are you heading to? So for us, if you are creating a department to actually monitor and report, give feedback to government on the rise in unemployment, that means the department should not be the one to actually carry out employment. Because we have seen cases whereby you give activity and opportunity to a section of a ministry, and all you see again is they add politics to it.
Talking about underemployment now, we have people that are employed. We have many people are underemployed. What would be your stand towards achieving decent work? Because recently the International Labour Organization says, okay, this is a new normal, but we want a better normal. So if Labour is saying they want a better normal, with underemployment and the rise of unemployment, what do you think the government, Labour, private organizations can do to ensure that workers get decent work?
Again, one thing about decent work is decent work should be prioritized, irrespective of the status of employment in a country. Decent work is all about safety for the ones that are working and the ability to secure confidence in those also that eventually will come to work. So decent work is a must norm that certainly in anything we do, we engage decency, because that is the umbrella and the foundation that guarantees that there is hope. Because if we are talking about fear of no job, and again we are still faced with vulnerability in the place of work, then the hope is lost. So I believe that federal government, state government, and the employers of labor must adhere strictly on decent work. For no reason should anybody compromise the compositions of safety rules in the workplace. Because the question is, what was behind and what is behind decent work? Decent work is to achieve productivity without hazard, is to achieve efficiency without damage. So when you engage decent work, you promote decency, not just in the line of production, but among workers. They have respect for rule of law in the place of work. Harassment is eliminated when decent work becomes the watchword. So for me, it should be treated with the utmost respect. Even in the midst of unemployment challenge, decent work remains a priority. When you also have a full employment, whereby the economy is tested to be 100% active, even at that, decent work is a must. And I believe
very quickly, there has been lots of pocket of strike, protest, because maybe many of them are not happy about development. Many people have lost their jobs, and many will still lose their jobs. Can you tell us very quickly what Nigerian Labour Congress stands for in terms of the need for unionization? Because most employers that don't allow their workers to be unionized are the ones that exploit workers the more. Can you quickly bring us up to speed on this?
Yeah, I think Labour, from the point of Nigerian Labour Congress up to all the athletes, they are making effort to ensure that unorganized companies are organized. People should also help us to actually drive this to success. Organizing these workers is to help them benefit from the decent work we're talking about. When you organize workers, that is when their safety is actually guaranteed. We talk about job loss. Do you know that it is worse that you lost a job and you don't have gratuity at the end? A casual does not have gratuity. A casual worker has no protection, even after the job. There are people that have been thrown out of job and they have no voice to speak for them. It is only when you organize that injury for one becomes injury to all. Don't forget, the might of an employer is too high, too heavy, waiting for a worker to even report the unsafe environment where he's carrying out his function. And don't forget, you are not under any obligation to obey an instruction that eventually will take your life. So we need these people organized such that they are monitored and treated fairly in the place of work. Organizing is a must, both in the ILO standard. In fact, there is a new normal that even when there was a lockdown, we should engage electronics in ensuring that the system is not hot in getting workers organized. And some people have actually testified successes in this period of lockdown where they have gotten some workers organized, because workers have seen it that at the time of COVID, employers are more aggressive in trying to make final profit if possible. And therefore, who would they exploit? The workers will fall victim. So the victim of the expense of this action of employers, they are the vulnerable, the people that have no union. So effort to unionize them, and thank God these are lawful. Action of the organizing workers are lawful in Nigeria. Right to organizing is a law that has been not just it has been domesticated in Nigeria, and therefore we are not just asking, we are actually seeking compliance to the rule of law.
Thank you.
Organizing is a must.
Thank you very much. It was an interesting conversation I had with you. Nigeria's unemployment rate as at the second quarter of 2020 is 27.1%, indicating that about 21.7 million Nigerians are unemployed. It is an indication of Nigeria's unemployment and underemployment crisis. Hence, there is need for the country to focus more on mitigating the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic in the world of work and providing effective response towards having a robust economy after COVID-19. That's the much we can take on this week's edition of Labor Lens. Join us next week as we continue to discuss the impact of coronavirus pandemic on the world of work and other labor matters. I am Sharon Ijason. Always remember that labor creates wealth.